Oi, what's the best game where you get to eat pie? What's the best game where you play a dead guy? You'll find out in VG247's podcast. Here, what's the best game where you swing from a rope? And what's the best game where you batter the Pope? Assassin's Creed 2. Like I said, you will find out in this here podcast. Hello and welcome to VG247's Best Games Ever podcast, where we attempt to find the best game within an extremely specific category that we've made up. For example, this week we're looking for the best game that features a Welsh actor. Now, one person on the panel, Tom, complained bitterly about this topic being quote-unquote bullshit, which I personally take issue with because, as we all know, the Welsh are very well represented in the thespian trade, punching above their weight, you might say. In fact, the Welsh are so represented in acting that I myself, a Welsh person who doesn't even present as Welsh and isn't really an actor, found himself acting in 2 video games this year, almost by accident. So the nation of Cymru is so saturated with drama that Welsh people cannot leave the fucking house without running into an acting gig. Small note, none of the panel have picked either of the games that I appeared in, and therefore it's going to be very fucking difficult to impress me this week. And that task belongs to Editor-in-Chief Tom Ori.
Hello.
Associate Editor Alex.
Hi.
And Daft Connor. How you doing?
Howdy. No, I'm doing good. How are we all doing?
So that's what he's put his username out, by the way. It's not just me insulting him randomly.
You are the originator of Daft Connor, though. It was your idea.
It was my idea, but via a hand puppet, and you didn't have to repeat it. So technically, this is on you.
That's true.
Okay, so we've got a bunch of, like I say, look, there's loads of Welsh actors. There's like hundreds of them, and they've been in loads of stuff. And there's actually, when you start looking into this topic, there are like dozens and dozens and dozens of video games that have a Welsh person knocking about in them somewhere. And not even the obvious ones like Assassin's Creed, which people also haven't picked, which I was quite surprised about. So first of all, we're going to go to Connor. What's your pick?
Okay, my pick is one spectacular Welsh actor I like quite a lot called Iwan Rheon. He played Simon in Misfits, and he played Ramsay Bolton in Game of Thrones. That's probably what most people know him from.
Oh, he's brilliant,
Yeah, he played a warlord of the Dark Elf faction in Total War Warhammer 2, I believe.
Yeah.
Beast Lord Rakarth. And he does a great job in that, and it's a great game, and I think that together makes my pick pretty solid, to be honest. Total War Warhammer 2 is this massive sort of like CRPG, sort of, it's like 4X. You kind of control your faction in this massive fantasy world, and you need to go out and conquer other factions and take over cities and build up armies and kind of like cut a massive like path through the world as you do and try and achieve little side objectives.
Yeah.
It's a sort of game I've never really been good at all. It's not at all my sort of thing, but the sheer amount of like content they've added onto it over the years means that like, if you were to get the latest game, Total War Warhammer 3, which you can, like transfer in all of the previous content from Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2, and you've got this massive, absolutely gigantic sort of playground of like army management and these big bombastic battles.
Sounds like a game for dweebs.
It is, but it is a great game for tasteful dweebs,
also not a fighting game, Tom.
No, I did look. I really did scrape for like
I
30,
thought you were going to come in here and like, oh, it turns out that they couldn't get Snoop Dogg for Def Jam NY, so it's actually a Welsh guy.
I spent a silly amount of time looking for like a Welsh guy in some fighting game, but I couldn't find a good one.
Yeah, there's a lot of Welsh Street Fighter characters, is there?
No, you really think,
There's not. I don't think there's a Scot either.
Very pacifist nation, Will.
No, Cammy and Dudley are both English.
Well, Cammy and Dudley are English, yeah, but I don't think there's a Scot.
No, you'd think there would be.
Yeah.
At this point.
I mean, there was a stage in Scotland. There was the Street Fighter 4 stage set in the Scottish whiskey distillery. Anyway.
Yeah. But back to Beast Lord Rakarth. Basically, this was off the heels of Game of Thrones. So Ewan was kind of big popular for being this evil, sort of like torturous.
Bit of stunt casting for the game, but
sure. So he basically comes
well.
in. Yeah, he basically comes in and does the Ramsay Bolton thing. He's very evil sounding.
Yeah.
Kind of. He talks about like feeding people to his hydras and stuff.
Does he cut anyone's willy off?
I think there might be. I think there's a line he says that is like a reference to like sausages. Or something.
I was going to say they're going to reference the cutting the willy off thing.
Yeah,
it's just what he's known for. He's now typecast as a guy who cut the other guy's willy off.
Yeah, it kind of is, and it's a great scene, right? I mean, there's not much, I'd like to be known for.
What is this? What is this spoiler about? I've no clue what you're talking about.
The Game of Thrones where he
cuts off
Alfie Allen's willy.
I've not watched it. I've not watched Game of Thrones,
but it's meant to be really sad because he really likes his willy. Doesn't it turn out that he fed it to the dogs or something?
Yeah, so I think he pretends to eat his penis, but it's a sausage. But I'm sure he just fed it to like the dogs or something, right? He like throws it to the dogs.
Hold on,
the look on Tom's face.
Is this in Total War or is this in?
No, this is in
Game of Thrones.
But related to that,
expected from a Sega IP.
Like Ramsay Bolton
franchise.
likes his dogs.
Yeah,
Beast Lord of the Calf is all about having these big monsters, and his goal in the game is to kind of go around and collect these big monsters which you can add into your army and then throw at other players or other computer controlled factions. So it does that's kind of how they found the fit, I suppose. They did kind of just say, who's a popular evil guy right now that we can give this gig to, and they gave it to Ewan. But,
he was that show's best villain, and I'm talking about Game of Thrones again, not Tom, but because before him, Joffrey was everyone's favorite villain in anything. And when he gets off, do you think they're never going to have a villain as good as Joffrey? And then he comes along, and he's
so many spoilers in this
somehow
podcast.
10 times better.
Also, is this about Game of Thrones or about fucking?
I know.
They could have called it. Listen, they could have called it Total Warhammer, but they called it Total War Warhammer, which is like a fucking nail in the center of the brain.
Is it because it's the brand?
Yeah, I spoke to the devs about this when it hadn't yet been released, and a Gamescom or something, and they did say it was just they couldn't come to a branding related agreement.
Unbelievable.
So it had to be separate.
But it does make sense.
Everyone calls it Total Warhammer, though, which is all that matters.
It does make sense.
People, innit? They ruin everything.
It does make sense you going back to Game of Thrones because he is basically just doing his Game of Thrones voice, but it's a good performance and it's in a great game. So that's why I think it's a banging suggestion, to be honest.
All right. What a brilliant choice. Once again. All right, Alex, what have you got for us?
I'm shocked that it appears that no one else has picked this, because when I picked it, I was like, this is definitely going to be a duplicate because it's a huge game. It's a recent game. Yeah. It's at the forefront of everybody's mind, and it is absolutely jam-packed with Welsh actors and Welsh stuff, to the point where when it was out, I saw people of Welsh origin who are in games on Twitter rejoicing and sort of feeling like it was a bit of a Welsh national treasure, and that is Elden Ring.
Yeah.
This game is just absolutely packed with not just Welsh people, just to begin, but absolutely packed with like low-key, rather than people who've been in Game of Thrones and stuff, it's packed with that workhorse, low-key British jobbing actor sort of stable. Xenoblade is the same also, but it's like you look up the people in this and they've all been in fucking Casualty and Doctors, and a lot of them have been in Peaky Blinders and stuff like that. And yeah, so I mean, the Welsh influence is everywhere. Like there's areas, like I was looking at the map, and like there's really Welsh names like the Wyndham Ruins. That's straight up out of, in fact, it's all Wales and southwest England basically. A lot of Somerset in there as well. A lot of Devon in there. There is, of course, probably the single most like prominent NPC who's become a big thing for fans and stuff is, of course, Rani. That's a Welsh name played by a Welsh actor. Rani has her servant, the Wolfman, who's literally called Blyde, which is the Welsh word for wolf, which is something I only know because of Doctor Who, obviously. And there's a number of other, I think, I was looking it up, I was seeing how many there were, and like I was looking through the credits, and there were at least 4 or 5 Welsh actors, all of whom put in excellent performances. And I think Welsh is an underrated. Is underrated in its use in terms of fantasy universes because Welsh is different. Well, Wales is small enough, but the language and the accent is different enough that you can deploy that into your fantasy world, and it feels quite fantastical right the way around the world. Whereas, although Queen English has become quite standard in fantasy. So it was really refreshing to see Elden Ring use, and actually Ni no Kuni, another game that had a lot of Welsh talent and a lot of Welsh accents.
Yeah.
And it's always refreshing when that happens. And I think Elden Ring is absolutely the best example. And I think Amy, I can't pronounce the first half of her surname for Amy Fionn Edwards, I think it is.
Okay.
She's also been in Xenoblade, and she's, you look at her CV and it's pretty classic British. She was in Peaky Blinders and Luther and Inside Number 9 and Death in Paradise and Casualty and Skins when she was a teenager. So she's brilliant. And yeah, her performance as Rani in particular sort of is like, Rani's one of the characters that holds that game together. It's one of the central characters to one of the major storylines that culminates in one of the optional endings you can reach. And she in particular, her whole like family unit that she surrounded herself with, all those characters have Welsh names and Welsh accents, except for one dude, and that dude turns out to be a traitor. So the one dude who's got an English accent that hangs out with her turns out to betray her. So yeah, I just think it's obviously the best game of the year. It's the best game probably of the last 10 years, in my opinion. And it's jam-packed with... Yeah, and it's jam-packed with Welsh actors, Welsh character names, Welsh area names. So it's got to be Elden Ring.
Yeah. Oh, God, you made me really want to play it now. I didn't realise it was infused with all this Welsh stuff.
It's so steeped in Wales. Yeah, it's... yeah.
You must be a bit miffed, Jim. You're not in it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. But what you were saying about how sort of Welshness often, when it's deployed in fantasy, feels still has a bit of a magic about it. I was just thinking about Morvith Clark, who plays Galadriel in Rings of Power.
Yes.
She's a Welsh actress and is brilliant in that role. I mean, a lot of people... I think Rings of Power generally went down well, despite people on Twitter professing to hate it before it came out. But but she's brilliant, and I think a lot of her Welshness bursts through from that portrayal. And her name is Morvith. That sounds like Middle Earth, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So there we go.
But I also think that's a Tolkienism, right? Because he was a Midlands boy.
Yeah.
And as someone who grew up literally about 5 roads away from where Tolkien grew up.
Yeah.
I think you're quite close to Somerset and Wales. That if as a child, I bet if he went to the seaside, he went to Somerset or Wales, and so I bet some of that seeped into
I would say so, yeah, because it makes sense. Like the elves coming from over the water, that's the Welsh people, the exotic Welsh people, and like I think the Shire was essentially based on the West Country, wasn't it? And hobbits were very West Country sort of people. Certainly, that's how they've been portrayed. All right, we're getting into Tolkienology now. We haven't got time. Tom, what is your pick that you've hastily Googled?
Yeah. So
After complaining bitterly,
I didn't like this topic at all, and I try and it has to be a game I've played. I feel like picking a game I haven't played is against the spirit of this podcast. So
yeah.
I have to have at least played it, and I was like, I haven't played any of these bloody games that have got Welsh people in. None of them. Like Elden Ring, I have, but I played it for such a brief amount of time. It was like doesn't really count. I don't think I got past the bit before I didn't get out of wherever it is at the beginning. It becomes a big open world thing, right? I didn't get to that bit. I just got before that. Anyway, so I Googled a lot of stuff and I can't remember where I found it. I'm going to have to read it off my message to you because I've forgotten what the character is called in this game. Right, so the game Planet Zoo, which is a good zoo game, right? Planet Zoo, Frontier, who are makers of games of this type.
Yeah.
You manage a zoo. I played this for about an hour once.
Based in Cambridge. Tolkien was from Cambridge.
Yeah,
true.
That's a bonus. So there's a game with animals in it and people that work in the zoo. And one of the people that works in the zoo is called Nancy Jones. Right? Nancy Jones, who is a head zookeeper, I believe, according to the Wikipedia entry of Nancy Jones in Planet Zoo.
Yeah.
And Nancy was voiced by actress, I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Noni or Noni? I don't know. Noni Lewis, who my Googling has discovered is a Welsh actress. There we go.
Was her portrayal memorable?
I don't
as
remember.
The zookeeper?
I don't think I met Nancy Jones in the game.
I was gonna say, like, you know, Princess Rani takes you on this big narrative side adventure. You know, Beast Lord Macarthur's this big evil warlord. What does Nancy Jones really add to Planet Zoo?
Welshness. That's the whole point of this.
Podcast,
isn't it?
I mean, but maybe not, because you didn't even run into her, so she might be put on like a British, like an English accent.
No, she's Welsh, as I've Googled, and she's a Welsh actress.
I mean, in fairness, Nancy Jones is an incredibly, like, if you want to get across to the audience that the character is Welsh, then picking a name like Nancy Jones would probably do it.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Right. So, is there anything particularly Welsh about Planet Zoo? I mean, does Wales have any zoos? I don't know.
It must have one.
There's got to be a zoo in Cardiff, right?
There's got to be at least some like.
I mean, when I was a kid,
like a wildlife reserve type place.
There is the Welsh Mountain Zoo in Colwyn Bay. There's also an Anglesey Sea Zoo, which I think normal people call an aquarium.
I bet Nancy was based off someone that worked at that zoo.
The thing is, right, growing up in Wales, I can say this. The vast majority of sort of like, anytime you want to do something that Wales isn't quite sort of big and economically powerful enough to have of its own, you just sort of go across to Bristol and it's probably got it there. So I think Bristol Zoo is like, for people in South Wales, is probably like the closest zoo as we would tend to imagine a zoo. But that's gone now. So yeah, that's not there anymore.
They should just turn Barry Island into a nature reserve.
Already is, isn't it?
I like how the Planet Zoo wiki page has, because I assume it's to do with animals. So it's got Nancy Jones has a species section, human. Just to be clear, human person as a zookeeper. But yeah, she got her first job with Bernie over 30 years ago, apparently. I don't know who Bernie is.
Yeah, fair enough. Barry Island is like Alcatraz for people who work in Quickfit, isn't it? So, I don't know what that means. Right. So there's very little Welsh about Planet Zoo, we've established, apart from the fact that there is a zoo quite near Wales. All right, I'm gonna have to play the jingle to pick something now. That's now been played. So, right, I need to pick. Tom, it was a good effort, and I do applaud.
There was an attempt.
I mean, I had all the list of all the articles on the website, on the internet, were like Elden Ring, the Welsh guy from Ni no Kuni.
Did you never play?
I will say that is great. I almost picked Ni no Kuni because the Welshness of that game is excellent, and it's a great example of like a really canny localization. Because in Japan, all those characters speak in like very specific Japanese regional dialects. Yeah. And usually the lazy version of that, I feel like I've talked about this on this podcast before. The lazy version of that is usually to turn them into a Scottish person and basically have them sound like Scotty off Star Trek. And so anytime someone, which is like, there's a character in Final Fantasy 7 that they did that with, and we'll see if they keep that in the remake when they reach that character in the remake. But anytime someone does that and they do something different, like if they make them Welsh or they make them like a redneck from the States or something, I've always got time for it. And so,
have you not played Assassin's Creed 4?
Which one is that? What's it called? Is it Black Flag?
Black Flag, the pirate one. That
I wasn't
likes.
sure. I couldn't find for sure if the voice was by a Welsh actor.
I'm pretty sure he is Welsh. I'm pretty sure he is actually from Swansea.
I literally didn't spend very long.
I think,
doing this.
From vague conversations or maybe something I've read, I think that character was Welsh because the actor was Welsh. Because the character's originally meant to, the character starts life in Bristol, starts the story in Bristol, but they actually kind of make him Welsh because the actor is Welsh, and they brought that in. It was a sort of chicken and egg situation.
Would have been a better choice. You're correct.
So you could have had that. You could have had. You not play Dragon Age Inquisition back in the day? I'm sure you played that for a bit, didn't you?
A bit. I played it on xCloud on my phone. I couldn't see any of the menus. I was just tapping around. I have no clue. I can't figure out how to get around in that game because I can't see the menus in clear enough detail on my phone to read them.
Well, had your phone had sufficient definition to allow you to play it, you would have encountered a character called Solus, played by Gareth David Lloyd, who was Yanto Jones in Torchwood. He's a very good actor, Welsh or otherwise. So I don't think
the credentials of.
I'm not doubting her. I'm not doubting her credentials. What I'm doubting is that you tried very hard, Tom.
I tried hard as I could in 5 minutes.
All right, Connor. Great choice, and he is a fantastic actor.
He's probably the best Welsh actor.
I wouldn't go that far.
I love him. He's great.
I mean, Anthony Hopkins is still alive for a start. So
Anthony Hopkins is Welsh.
Wind your neck in a wee bit. Of course he's Welsh. His name's Anthony Hopkins.
I thought he was one of us. Okay, this one.
No. No, he's Welsh, and
don't forget when you Google Welsh actor, Michael Sheen is the first result.
Yeah, I mean Michael Sheen
he exists.
Probably is the finest actor of his generation, Welsh or otherwise.
I wonder if he's ever been in a video game.
Well, I googled Welsh actors in video games, and that's how I got my
list. Did Twilight ever have any sort of crappy video game adaptations on the DS or something? There must have been,
right?
I don't remember a Twilight game, although it's a bit old.
That's weird. They missed the boat there.
There may have been. There was a phase where people just released those games. You just find objects in scenes, right?
Yeah.
Probably got one of those.
I mean, if Michael Sheen has ever been in a video game, that should win it.
I don't think he has, which is bizarre.
That's meant. How do you not be in a video game? I'm in too. I wasn't even trying. Anyway, look, we're not talking about me again.
About that Bruce Willis game.
What Bruce Willis game?
He was in a game, wasn't he? Bruce Willis. I'm sure he was in a game. Is this a COVID FIFA dream? I'm sure Bruce Willis was in a game.
He was in a PS1 game.
Is Bruce Willis Welsh?
Oh, that's the good point, Connor. He's not Welsh. No, I'm quite ill.
I was going to say this is a COVID fever dream. Not that Bruce Willis is in a video game because he has been.
Last night, to fill you in how ill I am, I had a fever episode where I was convinced I had to keep really still to win ball bearings. And if I didn't win these ball bearings, which were literally just tiny, they were just nothing special about them at all, my son was going to get really angry with me. So I was lying in bed super still, and I kept moving my foot thinking, oh shit, I've lost the ball bearing.
I've just actually done a spit take all over my fucking keyboard.
Incredible. All right. So I don't know where to go from that once again. All right. So, Connor, where I was going with this was Connor, he's a great actor, and it's a great choice of game, but I can't believe he's done it again. Fucking 2 in a row this time. We're going to have to tally up who's winning these podcasts because I'm pretty sure at this point Donaldson is going to be 20 points ahead of everyone else, like Keir Starmer, right? But Elden Ring...
Politics in games, Jim.
Listen, Elden Ring is a great choice because, as Alex put in the pitch, it's not just that it stars quite a lot of Welsh people. It's infused with Welsh culture, Welsh folklore, and Celtic folklore in general. And I love that. One of my favorite things about Japan is, one of my favorite things in general is how your own culture is depicted by other cultures, right? Like, for example, the one and only time I went to Japan, actually Donaldson was there with me, was when we went to a pub called The Hub, which is a massive chain pub that they have in Japan. Terrible chain pub, which is essentially a Japanese take on like an alternate universe Weatherspoons. It's laden
it is a
with-
Japanese view of what a British pub is, and they pour you an absolutely terrible Guinness.
Yeah.
And it's full of salarymen drinking themselves until they vomit.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Honestly, I saw more Union flags in Japan just on the sides of buildings and stuff than I've seen in actual like orange marches. It was ridiculous. So, but I had a fish and chips hot dog where it was like a fried cod in batter, but in the shape of a sausage in a hot dog with fries. Which is
my favourite. This just connects to my favourite worst thing in Japan is when you go out to Japan to meet some game developers.
Yeah.
They clearly think, oh, to be nice to the Westerners, we'll take them out for some Western food. And I can't think who this was. I don't think it was Capcom, because I think the Capcom PR that person is smarter than this. But whoever it was, whatever publisher it was, I can't remember, but they took us to an Italian restaurant, and it was this Japanese vision of what Italian food should be. And generally speaking, Japan make great food. Like, I've had some of the best burgers of my life in Japan, but this Italian restaurant was terrible. And it was like everything was served with fries, even like, you know, a cannoli or whatever, all served with fries for no reason, because they just don't understand how the food is meant to be served. And
don't know, I'm making a pretty good pitch for it. I do love that double carving. Anyway, sorry. Right, okay. So, look, long story short, Alex has won once again.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wonder if everyone else is just like, keep letting Alex win. What's going on? What's going on here? What's the deal that you guys have cracked? No deal. Alex just keeps picking the best ones.
I would argue about this. I haven't really got the energy anymore.
I think.
So, Elden Ring is the best game featuring a Welsh actor and Welshness as a concept, which I think is pretty fair to say. Now, if that was the topic, you'd have complained even more, Tom. But
Like I said, you will find out in this here podcast.
if you enjoyed the show, please give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. It really helps us get the word out. We're not just a podcast, of course. If you'd like to hear more from the team, then check out VG247.com for our fantastic news coverage, features, reviews, and game guides. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye. I'm sorry about this. I'm reviewing quite a big game, so I've not had time to do the orc hit gag for the end of this episode. But just for me, if you could imagine that I've put together a really crappy orc hit based version of the Welsh national anthem, we can all just pretend I've done it, and I can move on. All right, cheers, thanks. Also, to be honest, it's got a really weird time signature, and I don't actually think I'm capable of doing it in Mod Plug Tracker. Look, it's just I'm having a very complicated week. All right,